Hello everyone, welcome back to the workshop and another Sunday video. So following on from last Sunday's video, I want to talk about other sort of more interesting bits of the boring bits, as it were. I want to have a look at this. So this is my beam drill or boring machine. You'll see it's got a cable tie on it at the minute. That's because this latch can be a bit iffy at times, and it's been doing a couple of static demos recently. But first of all, I want to have a look at and have a conversation about some of the comments from last week's video. So one was that these triangular bits that I was, and I'm still, not totally convinced about, was that they were countersinks, and I think that's correct. That's what Dad always called them. However, they don't work on timber. That's the countersunk hole from that bit. They're awful on timber. So I was looking for an explanation for some work that I'm doing on some very strange windows for a conservation officer. They wanted to know why they were like they were, and I've had to do a bit of research myself on that. And as part of that, I found in George Ellis's Practical Modern Joinery, there is actually a really good table of beautiful illustration of bits and things. And in there are these. But he has them listed as iron countersinks, and I think that's probably what they are. Is countersinks for iron. The other comment I got was that these bits here, these Gedges pattern bits, like this one, if I can get it to focus, like that one, with the holes in. I'll find the bigger one because that's easier. See that these bits were for end grain. Now, as you can see, they come in a vast range of sizes. But what would you be drilling end grain that short for on that sort of sized hole? Because really, if we're drilling end grain as carpenters, we want a long bit like that one that's in the beam drill, because it's generally for a king post, the bolt for a king post. So yeah, I'm not totally convinced they were solely for end grain. As I said in the video, they're definitely for rough work because they'll drill. They are so tough here. But we'll have a quick look. I'll chuck you on the tripod now and we'll have a quick look at that. Okay, so I drilled this hole here with this bit earlier. So it's a clean hole, it's a new hole. So we'll take the iron countersink and we will now countersink that hole. And as you can see, it will do it, but it's incredibly rough. So if we just drill another very quick hole just to test a different style of countersink bit. And bearing in mind this is the sort of work that carpenters and joiners would have done day in, day out for screws using these bits. I just need to find a different. So the bits would have had to have been right because they didn't have the joy that we have and the ease that we have with a modern bit. You see how clean that rose countersink has left that. Let me get that in focus. So you see how clean that hole's been left by that rose countersink compared to this flat countersink. So I think probably I need to find some an offcut and mild steel actually, and when I'm drilling one day I need to test it on that just to confirm. But I think it's called an iron countersink because it was designed for countersinking iron. Whether it would work in sort of more modern steels, I don't know, but we'll have a look. We'll give it a test one weekend and see what we can do. But definitely these rose countersinks, if you're a carpenter or a joiner or a woodworker of any description, it's these rose countersinks you want to be looking for, not these. They're listed by George Ellis as iron countersinks. So this is the new braids, the ones we were looking at last weekend. So this is the Gedges pattern, and they are indeed fantastic bits for end grain, if you can keep them pulling to task, because that's the problem with a bit with a snail on, or with a lead auger on, lead screw on, whatever you want to call it. They were always called snails in my dad's workshop. Don't know why. Oh. Just slipped out of the chuck there, and again. But they do drill a hole, and a clean hole at that. Okay, but let's just have a look at what I know were being used for end-grain drills, particularly by they're well sought after by furniture makers and Windsor chair makers and that sort of thing. And that's this shell auger. Now obviously again, I haven't actually started my hole with a little gauge, so I've got to sort of just, they do cut slower, but the beauty of these is you can cut at any angle. Then you can change the angle after you've started the bit. You can't do that with an auger with a lead screw on. So if you were through drilling or deep drilling, you could just knock the plug out. Okay, that is also an incredibly clean hole that's coming off these shell augers. So yes, probably they were, but I'd never find a Gedges pattern long auger, which for me as a carpenter slash joiner, the longer augers would be what we would need for drilling king posts and that sort of thing. So yes, they are exceptional for drilling end grain, but I don't think that was their sole purpose in life. They're definitely rough work bits, because they are so tough, and you look at the end of that bit compared to the end of that more Jennings pattern auger there, and look at the heft. This is vastly heavier than this much longer auger, and its nose heavy as well because all the metal is here. So yes, they are exceptional end grain drillers, and that is true, but I don't think they were solely for end grain. So now we have this fantastic pillar drill. Now this was given to me by a very good friend and some very good customers, Carol and Nico, and Carol's father used this pillar drill in his day-to-day work as a blacksmith. He was also a farmer and the area contract sheep shearer, I believe, and their beautiful little holding was a wonderful little farm holding. Still had its cow stalls from the 50s, where they would tie individual cows and that sort of thing. But in the barn, sort of in his workshop space where he used to do his blacksmithing, I found this, and Carol said, would you like it? And I said, well actually yes, I would. I've since restored it fully. I've had to find some parts. So this pawl here, this little pawl here was completely missing, although this arm is original. This pawl is missing, and I got this off another one. And there was something else. Oh, this wheel here, I changed this wheel because the original one for this drill, the teeth were completely worn flat on, which I think is why the pawl had been taken off. But it is literally a pillar drill. It's a hand crank pillar drill. Now, we have it easy in the modern world because we have beautiful, lovely handheld battery drills. We have electric pillar drills. We have all manner of things. Oh, I think we forget just how easy we have it now and how much labour saving they are, because this thing, as you can see, no matter how fast you crank it, it's only going to push the bit in as fast as that little paw can push it round. So it's a wonderful thing, and it really is a wonderful thing, and I have restored it, and I've nearly finished restoring it. I've got a bit to do there, and I've got to polish this hand wheel back up because there's a little bit of flash rusting. My fault because I didn't wax the bare steel. And I've got to finish the base off. I've got to paint inside, put the green inside these holes and just clean the surface off. But it's a wonderful object, and it is going to stay in my workshop. For the simple fact it is such a lovely object. And actually this one is going to be suitable. I've got two of them. I've got one that's a Morse taper and this one. And they're going to go on a bench somewhere at some point. And they'll be for students to use when we're doing the taster days and the hand woodworking courses and things like that. Simply because they're just beautiful objects. They are nice to use, but they are slow compared to a modern electric pillar drill. However, it's an item that needed saving. They do work nicely, and from time to time I will use it just for the sake of. We'll have a look at the top of it first. So what do we have here? Wow, this machine is an antique boring machine. So this one came out of a railway yard and had been used for drilling crossing sleepers, filling the spike holes, and it came with this bit in it, although this bit isn't all that useful because the actual lead screw is damaged. But I put that one back in for when it goes on static displays. So a couple of times it's been to displays for my father-in-law, his tractor club and that sort of thing. And I do use it, and I do take it out on demos, and students do use it. So I've got it clipped up at the moment, because it's been out on display, but it literally relies upon the lead screw of the bit to actually pull the carriage down. There is no, this rack is only for retracting it. It is entirely weighted, and the screw allows this head to draw in. So that's why it needs bits with really good lead screws. So yeah, and then it, like I say, it retracts itself back. I don't want to take the cable tie off because the bit, yeah, I just don't want to. It's the simple answer. So we'll spin it round and we'll have a look. I am going to do a demonstration video on using this machine in another Sunday video. So now you should be able to see. Yeah, so this is the mechanism up the top. So this is this rack, and it's just on a little pivot, and it engages with this gear here. But that's all you do with it. The handles are a bit stiff because, like I say, it hasn't been used in some time. Yeah, that is how it would be used, and the purpose of this piece is it's literally a bum clamp. You sit on there and you operate the two handles, the two cranks. And then, as I say, this rack here allows it to be pulled in and out. It's missing down here. We'll have a look down the bottom. Have a look at the bottom of the machine. So down here, it's missing a plank, and that's always been missing. I need to actually find one and replace that. And as I say, this auger that's in it was the one that was in it when I brought it, and it's the one it goes on display with, because the actual auger itself, as you can see, is bent anyway. But the lead screw itself is really sort of damaged on this one. But as I say, it goes out for when it goes out on demo, that's what it goes with. This machine is exactly as I brought it, with the exception of this handle, which was missing when I brought it. So let's just have a look up there quickly again. So with the exception of this handle here, it's completely as I brought it. It's completely as it came to me. There's a little bit of damage here that's been done when it's been out and about at some point. One day it will get an oily rag restoration. It won't get a full restoration because I do actually quite like it being with a bit of patina, but there is a bit of wood stain and things that have got on it over the years that it would benefit from being cleaned. So what else do we have? Hand drills. Okay. This one is a little Stanley. This was the first one I ever bought. And it's a much older version of my dad's 1950s one. 60s one, 70s one, whenever it was. This is a little bit older than that. And they're just useful little things. So we then have, that one's a Stanley. This one is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful one. This was the one I bought. I bought this one shortly after I bought that one. I've had this one's been with me best part of 25 years, I would say. And it's a Miller's Falls number 2. And I bought it because I liked the look of it and it was cheap. What I like about this one, it has a place to put drill bits, and look at the, the standard that was made to. Whatever the timber was, it's a lot lighter and then dyed. Yeah, how lovely is that? As I say, it's a Miller Falls number 2. And then we have what I think is a Stanley. It could be anything. But this one has this big pad on the end and a side handle, and this was a breast drill. You'd put this up on your shoulder so you could lean into what you were drilling. So yeah, I think probably used for more drilling steel than timber, because the actual chuck size is not huge. You'd only get sort of 3/8 of an inch in that chuck. But yeah, they look wonderful tools. I have got a slightly more modern version of this. I've got a 2-speed footprint one. I couldn't find it, but just lay my hand on it quickly this morning. And the other thing I wanted to have a quick look at was this other 6-penny brace that I've got. This is a really nice one, although it's missing its thumb screw, which is a shame. And these may have actually been even cheaper, I think these may be what are referred to as penny braces, because this one's a lot lighter than this one. The other one I really like, but this one, has been damaged over the years. That's been stapled back together there, so it's not immaculate, that one. But this one is a lovely brace. It is a bit lighter and smaller though, so I think this is probably a penny brace, and this is a 6-penny brace, or that may be a 3-penny brace, whichever. But I do need to find a screw for it at some point for there. But that's really all I wanted to say, guys. And actually remind ourselves of just how lucky we are that small little portable battery drills like this are, relatively affordable. And it means that we don't have to, these, to me, these have been the real sort of labour savers and time savers in my industry. Because actually, when you look at the setup and the cost of machines, actually sometimes you're as quick and as, and certainly a lot cheaper with hand tools. However, when it comes to drilling and, especially with the bigger bits, if you were powering a bit like that all day long, that's a wonderful bit and it cuts beautiful holes. If you were cranking a crank handle, drilling holes with that all day long, you'd certainly know about it. You know, and whereas my large Makita 18-volt drill wouldn't think about drilling holes that size all day long. So yeah, there is food for thought with all this in that aspect. And I will, in another video in the next few weeks, I'll look at bits for modern hand drills and that sort of thing, modern electric drills and that sort of thing, because they are completely different. Obviously, we all think, oh yes, we have a straight shank now, and actually that in itself has its own issues. You know, there's a lot of steel in the shank of a bit like this, a lot of metal in this shank here, and you're never going to break that by the sheer torque that you can put on with any of the, even with a big brace like that, you're not going to put enough torque on that to break that. Whereas with the modern drills, particularly with the sort of the modern sort of 18-volt combi drills, actually it is possible to break a bit because they have so much torque now, and they apply it in such a different way to the way that these drills apply it, that it is possible to break a bit. So I want to have a look at things like that, and we'll go through sort of modern drill bits probably next week perhaps, and you know, drills for modern uses, because things like this bit here that I did the bearing blocks for the roll with, I just can't bear to throw away. But look at the shank on that. You know, look at the size. That is half. You know, that's half the width of the hole it was taking. But look at the difference in what's in the shank from that to that. And this was forged. I'm not totally sure what happened with this one. I think this is probably machined, but it is bent right through its length. You can see it there. It is very, very bent. And yeah, hand boring like this wouldn't have been an issue, you know, and that's the difference. You know, we are abusing what's possible now, I think, with some of this stuff. You know, the drills will take it, but will the bits and the, you know, and the accessories that go in them. So yeah, that's food for thought for next week, guys. I'll get that video out next Sunday. So next Sunday's video will be on modern machining bits. The following Sunday, I'm not here. I'm actually teaching. In fact, I'm not here next Sunday either, but that video I can put in the can. We're actually showing sheep next Sunday, but the following Sunday is the Sunday we are hewing all the timber for the Centre in the Past project. So the following Sunday after that, the first Sunday in June, there will be a video on the Centre in the Past project. So next week we'll look at modern drill bits while we're on the subject of drills, and then the following Sunday I'll film a video and release it and schedule it, and we'll look at various types of hewing axes and the tools that we'll be using on that Centre in the Past project. So thank you all for watching. The channel is growing now, it is moving, so if everybody could like and subscribe, that would be wonderful. I'm getting there now this week at 610 subscribers. So I'm happy to keep making the content, guys. If you're happy to keep watching it, it doesn't cost you anything to watch it. So if you could, that would be wonderful. Once we get to that sort of stage and I can see a bit of income, yes, I'll look at upgrading audio kit, which is the one question I get all the time, is about my audio. Unfortunately, I do use a microphone, a small microphone, But when you're actually moving and you're doing things, yes, sometimes you get a bit of crackle because it rubs on my shirt and what have you. Unfortunately, I can't clean that up in the editing software I use at the minute, and I understand that at the moment. And to start learning something else is a massive draw on my time just at the minute. And yeah, I'm spread too thin as it is to start learning new software, but I will look at it, guys. I promise I will look at it as we start to get, as the channel starts to grow, I will start to look at what's happening with that. So for now, guys, thank you all for watching. Enjoy the sunny weather. I'm hoping for a bit of rain, but I don't think it's going to happen. And I'll see you all next week. Thanks, guys. Bye.